Hello, my name is Aisling, and on behalf of Self-Help Africa, I'd like to welcome you all to Food for Thought. In this brand new 6-part online course, we're going to explore some of the issues, the challenges, and the solutions of how we can feed the world's growing population in the 21st century. Thank you to everyone who signed up. I'm looking forward to introducing you to some of my colleagues over the coming weeks, from Uganda, Kenya, and here in Ireland. They're going to lead you through the topics of this course. At its core, our work at Self-Help Africa is focused on ensuring that communities in some of the poorest regions of the world can have the food that they need for themselves and for their families. We're really delighted to have this opportunity to share some of the knowledge that we've gained through our work. You'll receive course content each Thursday at around lunchtime between now and the 2nd of December. The links in these emails will direct you to that week's session and you can watch it at your leisure. As well as this, we'll provide links to reference materials and further reading so that you can learn more about that week's topic. Finally, this week we've sent you a short survey and we'd ask you to complete this before beginning the course. So if you haven't submitted yours yet, I'd ask you to pause this video now before watching this week's content. We're going to share another survey at the end of the course, and your feedback can help us improve our presentations in the future. And now I'll introduce you to our first presenter. Margaret Ngetha is a graduate of the University of Nairobi in Kenya and Senior Enterprise Advisor and Portfolio Manager with Self-Help Africa in Kenya. Maggie also works with Agrify Kenya Challenge Fund. This supports the growth and development of the agribusiness and food industry sector in her country. We hope you enjoyed the session.
Good morning, good afternoon. Great to have you on board. Excited to meet you virtually. Welcome to this presentation that is being done by representatives from Self-Help Africa, a very wonderful course that we are calling Food for Thought. An online course that I believe you're taking it from the comfort of your house, the comfort of your car, or wherever you are. Why did we think about Food for Thought at Self-Help Africa? We want to provide an insight. We want to talk about the issues, the challenges, and the solutions that we have as a community and as an organization so that we are able to feed the growing global population. We want to present to you 6 online modules, and then we have 1 interactive session that will be able to answer all your questions around food and food systems. To start us off, I want just to talk briefly about feeding the world. Why do we need to ensure that the world is fed? Because food is important. It's a very important component of our well-being. If you don't eat, you can't work, you can't survive, you'll definitely die. You become malnourished. But then we know that in the world, there's a lot of food that is grown every season, year in, year out. And it is estimated that the food that is available can actually feed 10 billion people. And as we all know, the world has about 7 billion people. We still have people who are hungry. We have somebody today who doesn't have a meal. We have somebody who did not eat. But then we are asking ourselves, why? Why do we still have people who are hungry? Why do we still have people who are malnourished? Why does hunger exist? And that's a big question that we are asking ourselves today. And these are the reasons or some of the things that we want to look at in this course. So as I do an introduction, I want to say, did you know on the 16th day of October that the world celebrates the World Food Day? This is a day that was established by FAO, and FAO refers to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, but we have an opportunity to have conversations around hunger and around food. Now this year and this month, our theme was our actions are our future, meaning that whatever little or whatever you do really has an effect into the future. I just want to start us off as we do the introduction by playing a short video that you will listen. It's going to, and I believe that it's going to inspire you.
For each and every one of us, food tells a story. It starts with agriculture, and our actions impact its journey each step of the way. We have one planet and are part of one system. We must work together to build a better future. We need to reconnect with nature and work as one. Let's rewrite the story of food for a better, more sustainable world. Our actions are our future.
That video is inspiring. It is giving us very, very brief messages. And it's actually saying, and from this course, I believe this would be your take home, is that can we be able to rewrite the story about food? Can we be able to have conversations, fresh conversations around food and food systems? If we were to look at the whole world, and I have this pictorial, and just ask ourselves, how is food distributed? Is everyone eating? Is everyone getting healthy diets? Are we all properly nourished? What you can see from this pictorial here, or this representation here, is that all over the world, we have at least some percentage of population who are still undernourished. And that's really worrying, because initially we said that we're producing more food, of enough food that can feed the entire, or 1.5 times of the entire population. Yet, we find that we have part of the population that is undernourished. Well, this is a bit skewed. I live in Africa, 35% of the population who are undernourished. Now, it is also worrying because it means in Africa, we have nations that maybe are not tracking whether their populations are having plenty of food to eat, or they have hunger, or how well the well-being of their population. But ideally also there is hope, because if we were to look at the entire world, then we have a good representation of countries across the continent that their population that is undernourished is way below 2.5%. And that means that there is hope. If as a community, and if as a person, we get into conversations and we look at how could we, or what can we do to equitably distribute the food that we have, so that it is enough for everyone and everyone gets a chance not to go home, to go hungry. And so because we are looking at today, it is important to look at future. In the video, it was actually mentioned that for us to have food, it begins with agriculture. But we know for us to produce food, or to produce anything from the ground, then we need water, we need land, and we need other resources. But now, if you look at the prediction, it is that as AI goes and progress in future, we'll definitely have shortages. We'll have shortages of water, we'll have shortages of land, we'll have shortages of resources that are needed to be able to increase productivity due to the increased population. Now, and so it is actually predicted that in the next 30 years or so, then we'll have some, if this happens and there are these shortages, then ideally we'll have global food shortage. Can you imagine that globally we have shortages, even if we have trade, that people are not able to trade or we cannot move food, then it is a position that we shouldn't find ourselves. And that is why it is important to always remember that whatever actions we do today, that our actions are our future. Let me get to the course and the reason why you're here. For the next 7 weeks, myself and my colleagues from South of Africa, both in Africa and in Ireland, will cover a range of topics that will help you understand better where we are in terms of the food and availability of food and what the future holds for us. The next week, we're looking at the Sustainable Development Goals. Now we have 17 of them. And one of the Sustainable Development Goals addresses the issue of zero hunger. Are we able to achieve zero hunger by 2030, given all the challenges and the predictions of shortages that we have? Then we're going to look at the global food system. It is a technical word, but did you know that each one of us contributes to this food system? And after these 3 sessions or 3 weeks, then we'll be able to have a live session where ourselves will interact with you, and we're going to answer all your questions within the topics we have covered or out of these topics. Then we're going to consider in our week 4 on these are the big words that people have been talking about: climate smart agriculture. Wow. Some people call it CSA. It's been practiced for over the years. It will be interesting to listen to the experts, demystify this big term. And of course, we know that when you talk about food, you can't fail to talk about women. From the continent of Africa, where I come from and where I live, food is synonymous with women. Women are the ones who cultivate land. Women are the ones who cook and prepare food. And so we need to consider and to look at gender, and gender, relating it to food and equality. And finally, as we complete, then we look at the food heroes, and we're going to conclude. And I believe by the time we get to this end, you'll have learned a lot about the food systems. I have been talking for the last couple of minutes, but allow me to tell you about myself. So my name is Margaret Ngetha. I live in Africa in a country called Kenya, in the capital city of Nairobi. I call myself an agribusiness enthusiast. I started working with agribusinesses 11 years ago, but I was brought up and born in a small village where our livelihood revolved around agriculture. And this actually is what put me in a pedestal to love the world of agriculture. But then because I grew up farming, I decided that when I grow up, just like every kid says that when I grow up, I want to become, but I said, when I grow up, I would really want to promote agriculture as a business, because agriculture in our country or in my country is the backbone of our economy. At the moment, I'm working with Self-Help Africa as a senior portfolio manager. I work in a program, and my role involves supporting agri-enterprises across the entire country and region. And our aim is to ensure that these agri-enterprises better integrate the smallholder farmers into the market-oriented value chains or into their supply chains, so that at least the smallholder farmers can be able to get better inputs, they can be able to increase their productivity, and also above everything, they get markets, and market means that they have better incomes, and that means there is better livelihoods. They can be able to take their children to school, and they can be able to feed their children better foods and with better nutrition. At Self-Help Africa, globally, we promote knowledge transfer from the experts to the smallholder farmers, from the universities, whatever has been researched, to the smallholder farmers. We also ensure that we put in investments, because for us to produce food, then we need to ensure that investments are put into place. And above everything, we want to ensure that communities that we work with access markets. This is really important. As we do this, we address and ensure that the youth are involved, the women are involved, and the component of nutrition and ensuring that food is available, that it is safe, is very key to us. And so when you talk about food, it is very, very close to our heart as an organization. Now, Self-Help Africa is an Irish-based organization that works across Africa, Latin America, and some parts of Asia. Actually, at Self-Help Africa, we work with very food insecure communities, and actually these are rural communities. And we are looking at how can we support these communities, particularly looking at the women and the youth in the rural areas, so they can be able to grow more food and also access markets, as I had initially said, so that at least they are able to earn a living. Now, if they earn a living and they're healthy, then we know that they're able to produce and bring up a better generation. And that means that as Self-Help Africa, we are looking at having a better, resilient, and economically empowered Africa in the future. So there are a number of things that we do. And as I mentioned, we do knowledge transfers. So we pride ourselves to be farm advisors. That is what we know how to do best. So we look at what are the gaps that are existing within the farms. What gaps are existing within the value chains? And we work across different value chains, depending on every country, we are in different value chains. And we identify the gaps. And in those gaps, we know what is the best technology or what is the best method that we can do so that we are able to help resolve and provide solutions to those gaps. And our approach is purely participatory. We work with local governments, we work with national governments, and of course, we work with the communities that we look at supporting. I just want to get just a little bit deeper into our topic and just introduce on these big buzzwords on the global food systems. And we want to ask ourselves, when we talk about global food systems, what do we mean? Now, let me demystify it for you. You know, when you talk about a system, we are looking at different components that are interconnected, that are interrelated, that are interdependent, you know, and that complement each other. And so if we have all these components, then we mean that people are involved. And so I can say you and I participate in the global food system. And when I look at the global food system, we're looking at the agri-food systems. Now, how do you participate? You either participate because you're a consumer. We all eat food. Either it is processed or it's not processed, but it is food. And that food was produced. Now, if you eat, if you cook, if you prepare, if you help in the logistics, whatever point you do participate in that food chain, then it means that you're a key person and a key participant. And that really explains what all this system is all about. We're looking from the point where a farmer takes in seeds and plants the seed and then takes care of them on production. There's somebody else who looks at how provides the agronomy. That food is produced and then it goes through the supply chain, and then you get it at your supermarket chain. You get it, you cook it, or you buy it in a hotel. So there are very many participants who are actually part of this. But now when we look at food systems, are we looking at the food systems today, and what about tomorrow? And so we look at globally and how sustainable are these food systems. If you talk about the agri-food systems, especially from our continent in Africa and even across the world, there are a number of things that we have to consider. Number one, that food has to be available, and it's either available from the farm or it's available from the supermarket or the store where you get it, or the market. Now in Africa, we have food is available from our farmers, and it's also available from the open air markets. And we are getting to a point now, we are getting food in the supermarket stores. It's available. It's also affordable if you're going to buy it. But also we are looking at the safety of that food. There has been a lot of conversations around how safe is the food that we eat. And so here in Africa, we look at what are the pesticides, what are the post-harvest methodologies or technologies that we are applying to ensure that that food is safe. It has no aflatoxin, or it has no toxins or anything that would harm the body. Very important. But also we're looking at, is it nutritious? Because that's what our body requires. We want to ensure that we eat food that is nutritious, that is safe, but also, is it sufficient for everyone? We said that yes, food is sufficient, but we still have some people who are hungry, meaning there is something that we need to do to ensure that food is sufficient, available, safe for everyone across the world. And if we work collective, then we'll be able to sort out the hunger concerns and the hunger issues that we do have. So just to continue, and I've mentioned this about the sustainable food systems, it is really, really important that we ensure whatever we provide, whatever solution we provide within the food system, we provide it sustainably. So if you're looking at, also there's another buzzword about food security. and then we're looking at nutrition. And we're looking at the economics, we're looking at society, we're looking at environment, we're looking at generations to come. The food systems that we have, are they able to meet all these? Are they able to ensure that we get nutritious foods, we can afford it, socially we don't harm our environment because we say do no harm? Is it acceptable in our society? So if we want to achieve sustainable food systems, and I say sustainable agri-food systems, then we need to do a lot of things. It is the little things that really matter. So it starts down with the smallholder farmer. And we're saying we need to improve our production. We need to improve our productivity. We need to improve the types of food and the combination of foods that we grow. So sometimes we promote crop nutrition, so that if, for example, a farmer plants maize, then they need to make sure they intercrop with beans so that we have a starch, we have a protein, and they also have a kitchen garden. We also need to ensure that food is well and better distributed. We need to ensure that there is no wastage. So in Africa, particularly in Kenya, it is estimated that we lose 30% of the food that is produced through what we call the post-harvest losses, meaning that 30% of the food that we produce does not get to the marketplace. How do we control that? If that continues or if that increases, then it means that our food systems are not really sustainable. Now we're also looking at better life for all of us. So how do we prepare our food? How do we ensure that it's affordable? And these are the things that in the coming weeks that we'll be able to address. But in a nutshell, when you talk about sustainable food systems, there are a number of things that I want you to remember. Remember that for us to achieve that, we need to ensure better productivity, better nutrition, better distribution, access, and of course, we need to do no harm and ensure that we protect our environment. Why should we care? Why should we be concerned? Remember, we said that we are all participants in the food system. Now, the food system is very large. In Kenya, we normally say that agriculture is the backbone of our economy. Now, it also contributes to 37% of our gross domestic product, meaning it is a very important sector. It is one of the key sectors that leads to economic development. It leads to job creation. And estimates here say like over 1 billion people are employed worldwide in this sector. And this could be more than this. Now, if we preserve and we have good food systems, then we are saying that if we address certain components, especially around ensuring that food is distributed and there is fair distribution of food, then we'll have no people going hungry. If we have no one going hungry, then it means we can easily move to the next level. If we are having sufficient food, is it nutritious? If we have nutritious foods, it means that we have better health and we have better population, then it means that we have better and increased or improved productivity. And so that means if I'm going to have better quality life, better nutrition, better productivity, then it circles down. That then if I have people who are more productive, then they are able to serve better in all other sectors within the economy. But also, it is important where if food is sufficient, then it means it creates stability and peace. Because we all have enough, then it means we are more stable. So the civil strife that we hear from nations and places and communities might not be there. The migration we hear about then will be curtailed. And when there is stability, then it means that we are able to take care of all other aspects of life, including our environment. And so I could go on and on because there are very many other factors that we could consider to ensure that we remain or we take care of our food systems. And it is a call to action that we are actually having, that we ensure that we have less and less people, especially in the less developed countries, going without food. And how can we do this? The nations that have enough food how do they ensure that the people who have in other nations that have less food are able to get it? I mean, and that's a food for thought. There are many things. It can be through trade. It can be through donations. This has been tried before, but has it worked? And if it hasn't worked, where is the missing link? So just to give you a statistic on why it is important that we take care of our food systems. Now, last year, and we know that it was a COVID year, about 720 to 811 million people faced hunger. Now, but the question is, while some were facing starvation, there are other people who had enough food or more than enough food. So then the question is, why is it so? It means that there's a missing link or something that is not closed up very well in the food system. COVID hit us last year, and 2020 was a very different year. Things that have not happened before. Suddenly, the supply chains, or there were travel restrictions. So what did that do? That increased the number of people who are food insecure. It is estimated that 100 million additional people were at risk of food insecurity. And I'll say this, that majority of these people are actually in the continent of Africa. So why did this happen? Because actually, COVID just disrupted the supply chains. The markets closed. I mean, for the first time in my life, I saw the open air markets closing completely. Where could we buy food? Now, we do not have the resources that I can be able to buy and pile up in our houses. So meaning when the markets closed, employment was lost, logistics was affected, then it means that the entire food chain kind of was not resilient for some. And so that really affected the diets, the health, and that actually increased the level of malnutrition within the communities. And so when we are looking at transforming the food systems, then we look at for food systems that are more resilient, food systems that can be able to go beyond and be more resilient just in case of shocks that might happen, and shocks like COVID. We're still going through the effects of COVID, especially here in Africa, with very low rates of vaccination. But at least with the opening up of the economy, we can see a little bit of improvement. However, last year, if farmers were not able to get enough and quality inputs, then it means that it has actually affected the production for this year. We are looking at low yields, and the future looked very bleak, meaning that this year then we have higher cases of people who are more food insecure than we had before. It just seemed that it is really important for us to take care of our food systems. And that will actually help us, as we do this, to achieve our sustainable development goal number 2, which looks at zero hunger. I mean, just imagine a world where there's nobody who is hungry. Just imagine a world where food is sustainably accessible, secure, affordable, available. That would mean that if we are able to achieve this, then we are going to add zero hunger. And that's the world we are looking for. But if we were to look at what has happened in the past and the conversations that are there, I mean, food insecurity has been increasing. For example, for the past 6 years, 30% of the world population has been affected, and 30% of the population is actually facing food insecurity. And that's a huge population, very huge population. If we are 7 billion people, then slightly above around 3 billion people are food insecure. And then what does this mean? Either they don't have food, or they're not consuming a balanced diet, or maybe they're having insufficient food. Maybe they're just taking a meal a day. So we need to look at how do we sort out, or how do we resolve this? Sustainable food systems, that we are able to ensure that we address all components within the food chain and all components within the food system, can actually help us move towards this. And this is the ultimate goal. This is where we want to be. System. So what do we need to do? The food systems have been there. Then we need to make sure they're more transformative. We transform them so that we are able to sort out the hunger issue and the food insecurity issues that we have been talking about. I said previously that we are getting to situations where we'll have less and less resources for production. This will affect water, this is going to affect land. But then the population is increasing. So we have more people that we need to feed. So we need to ask ourselves and answer some very many critical questions, but just to mention, we just mentioned a few. So we go back to our production and we ask ourselves, how do we produce food, and food that is healthy, food that is safe, food that is nutritious? And who are these people who are producing it? What is there for them? Are they healthy? Are they earning incomes out of it? And then we need to address, very, very important, who are the people who eat this food? So we produce for the market. You know, this just reminds me that sometimes we produce, if I talk to a farmer, because I interact with farmers on a daily basis. And sometimes farmers will just grow crops because this was grown by their grandmother. This is what we grow in this region, without really considering who are the people who will eat this food. Am I growing it for the market? And is this what the people really want to eat? Now, we also need to look at the issue around the system. Is there fairness? Are our food system resilient? So for example, we had a shock of COVID. How resilient were the food supply chains? Some collapsed, some are still there. And we also look at how equitable is it? How do we ensure that everyone gets food? Again, it's amazing that we're producing so much food, yet we still have people who do not have food, meaning that there's a challenge on how that food is distributed. Now, but also it is looking at our actions are our future. So we're feeding ourselves. How are we taking care of our planet? How are we taking care of our generations to come? Are we looking at the next generation and the next generation? Will they have opportunities? Will they have resources to grow safe and sufficient food? Will the system, will the planet be able to support that? And in this way, we look at not only the farmers who produce, but we also look at all stakeholders. How do we address this, including the businesses? Now, previously, as a food business, one would just look at and be driven by profits. But now we are looking at, as a business, we consider the profits, we consider the people, and we consider the planet. So very, very important. We are feeding ourselves today, but how are we going to feed the generations and generations to come? So meaning, how then do we ensure that we have more efficient food systems, and we make our food systems more better and more palatable to ensure that we have that resilient and fair and equitable distribution to ensure that everybody gets food and nobody gets hungry. Now, let me just talk about what is going to happen in the coming week. Now, what I've just given you is just a teaser of the things that as an organization we want to talk to you about. Now, as we start this course, Food for Thought, we'll start by introducing you to the Sustainable Development Goals. The 17 of them, the 17 objectives that were designed to create a better world for all by 2030. Now, 2030 is just a couple of years to come. And we'll actually look at them and particularly look at some of them in depth and look at, for example, the SDG number 2 on zero hunger, and how are we contributing and how can we contribute and what does this mean to the world? Now, we'll also learn a little bit about Ireland as a nation and how it played in the creation and how it contributed to the UN global goals and how it's actually tracking and still contributing and running programs that are towards achieving these goals. Now, still we're going to get deeper and look at policies of non-governmental organizations like Self-Help Africa and others, including the Irish government, and looking at how do the SDGs actually inform our policies and strategies as an organization. That means that next week is packed. It will be very interesting, very informative. You don't want to miss. So for now, I really want to thank you for your time and look forward to meeting you on the online session that is slated for next week. Bye-bye for now.